behoove us to get information to those government representatives to say we would like more than what we have now?
We have, and they're aware of that, and everybody wants more than they have now.
What's gonna happen when the water goes down?
Yeah.
When the water goes down, we're still gonna be on the hook to pay this, but we're still on the hook to pay, you know, the other things like the multi-species protection and the other things that we pay for now. We're still on the hook to pay those anyway. And there are some forecast times where they think the water could be low and they're gonna cut short some of the capacity that we have, but it's never forecast that we're not gonna get anything. And so their forecast that goes out 40 years looks pretty good. Now, how do they know that? I don't know. I hope they're better than the weatherman, but that's the plan that they have. They've looked at a lot of historical data and tree rings and all kinds of stuff like that, and that's their forecast. So they've included that in this consideration.
The Schedule D here where they're talking about the 11,510 of contingent capacity, what are they talking about there for sure? I don't understand it.
There's going to be 11,000 kilowatts made available from the Nevada entities.
That's that 5% they're taking.
That's the 5%. Now, the reason that's contingent is because they could also get some extra. They're taking 69 kW as a whole from that they're going to get from upgrading turbines and things like that, and they're going to give some of the states a little bit beyond the 5% that they have. And so, in reality, we could end up with more than the 11 kW,
Okay.
or 11,000 kW, excuse me. Okay, Becky, let's go to 6.2, down at the bottom of the page. Now, right in here, this was one of the things that we had the most discussion about. To issue these long-term obligation bonds, they're going to have to issue some short-term bonds that bridge the gap between paying off the government and issuing the long-term bonds. And so the discussion that we had was, you know, what length of time does it take to do that? How fast can you do that? Because we do not want that to stretch out over any length of time. The interest rates are low now. We want them to move as fast as they can to finance that long-term debt and get rid of those short-term bonds. We don't want to be exposed to those for an extended period of time. And so that was their way to address that they would move with all speed to take care of that. Okay, Becky, let's go to the end of 6.3.
But they are agreeing to do a new 50-year contract as far as the power. We're not, this is going to be a long-term agreement where we have 50 years of this power, up 95% of it anyway.
Thank you, Byron. I'll jump in there as I go through this. If I miss something, Byron was in on the conference calls and has reviewed this and been through this with us.
Unless the government changes their mind, right?
They never do that. Okay, in 6.3 it just says that the cost and the accrued interest, that's again the exposure that we have on those short-term bonds. I just wanted to point that out to you, that is addressed in here, that we do have some extra costs that will be in there, but that has been factored in. And that has been taken care of.
But if you consider the rates we're going to refinance at versus that 8 and 9.84% of that $80 million, it's huge savings. Even if you add the costs for the refinancing, if you can get an interest rate even at 6, at 3% of $80 million is a lot of money.
Do you have an estimated savings per year of what we're going to do?
Yeah, the bond council went through and looked, and he said that if they could refinance this in the 5 to 6% range, it would save approximately just under $2,000 a month, so just under $24,000 a year.
OPD.
That's just over
That's
$2,000.
just
Let's go down to 7.1 here just a little bit, Becky, just to the end of that. I wanted to point this out to you that, oh no, let's see, I want to go, oh, okay, you got it. One change that we're gonna see is right now, as I mentioned, we didn't have the CRC bill for our finances today. They do that after the fact currently. Once this contract is signed, beginning in 2014, or whenever those bonds close, they're gonna start asking us to pay in advance. So they'll give us an estimated cost of our power bill and the other things, and we'll start paying that the month ahead rather than following the way that we do that now. So that is one of the significant changes in this.
Problem is, that means 1 month you're paying
Yeah.
2 bills.
And they mentioned that in here, that on September 1st, and October 1st, October, November together, so they've identified that in there. In 7.8, they again say that they're gonna adjust the schedule in 2017. And the reason they're gonna adjust that schedule is to reflect the Schedule D customers. So they will have to pay their proportionate share. Our share will go down to 95%, and the Schedule D customers will pick up their portion.
Dennis, you had mentioned earlier today that the term of the bond is gonna be 30 years,
30 years,
and that agreement is gonna be 50 years.
yes,
So at that point, when 30 years is up and the bond is paid off, our costs are reduced? or-
that's correct,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, this will expire with the bonds. Becky, let's go down to 7.11. They talk a little bit about carryover in here. Their fees are based on a flat amount, and we pay according to how much water comes through and how much energy that we receive. And if in a year where we get a little bit extra water, like last year, for example, we paid a little bit more than we're supposed to pay. And they've addressed that in here by saying that they will use that carryover into the following year, and so that if we overpay during the year, the adjustment will be made the next year, and they won't keep those monies. Let's go to 8.2. Retail customers had the biggest struggle with this because they're concerned with if there's a default, who has to repay these securities? And so we discussed these, number 1 and 2 at length. And we determined through the district, or through the Attorney General's office, that if there is someone who defaults on their share of this contract, that the state picks up those monies that would be paid by the defaulting party, and that those fees will not be passed on to any of us, the existing contractors.
even if it's a large customer like NV Energy, like that's 69%?
That's correct, the state is the responsible holder of those, and so, in item 2 here, it says that the state will move with haste to reassign those contracts as soon as possible. So if somebody were in default and there was some capacity left over, they would offer that to us, the existing customers, to pick up that share. And that's one way we could gain a share in this. If somebody were to default, we would have the opportunity to pick that up.
And you pay for what you take, so if you pick up an additional 10%, of course, you're gonna pick up that debt that's associated with it.
That's correct.
But you also get the power at a very cheap rate,
Right, well,
2.9.
as long as there's water and there's power coming, the likelihood of anyone defaulting is not high, because, you know, this is good, cheap power. If the naysayers have their way, or see the future correct, and the water all dries up and we don't have any power, then all of a sudden everyone's paying for nothing, or for less, and that's when the default may become an issue.
Yeah, you know, there's always the possibility that one of these retail customers would go out of business or something like that.
Yeah.
That would cause them to default on their portion.
From your knowledge of these people that are on this Exhibit D, they're all pretty reputable customers, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, we've all been on this, involved in this from the very beginning, so. That's how the retail customers got involved, is when Hoover Dam was constructed, those were considered important industries to the war effort, and so that's why those are the only retail customers that are part of this. Okay, let's go down to number 12. Again, if you would have someone other than the chairman of the board sign this, we're going to ask you to designate that representative today if you approve this, we'd ask you to do that. I believe that's all I have for comments in there. We talked about the savings that are available, $2,000 a month, just under that, and it's a 30-year bond. We did discuss, looking at shorter and longer terms, but 30 years seemed to meet everybody's needs, and that actually pays it off just a couple of years shorter than the existing bonds were scheduled to be paid for. So that met everybody's approval, and that's what everybody agreed to. And I guess at this point, that's my report on the contract, and I'll ask for any questions if you have any. Give the hard ones goodbye.
In California and Arizona, so far, there's no staking points with those two state entities.
No, they're actually just a little bit ahead of us, and they're moving right ahead. There haven't been any sticking points yet.
Again, this is one of those contracts where it's win-win. I mean, the whole point is reduce our costs of interest payment.
I think, based on your knowledge of the subject and your dealing with all the agency, it's just logical that we have you be the one to sign it. I don't know how you guys feel, and I make a motion that we assign him as a...
Well, I think let's put it in the motion that we accept and that he signs. Let's make it one motion rather than two.
Right.
Anyone objects to that? So I guess, any more comments, any more questions? And I guess we're looking for a motion to approve the contract and the general manager sign it. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Does that cover what we need, Mr. Attorney?
Approve the contract, I mean, when we put it in the minutes, we approve the specific contract between Colorado River Commission and CRC Schedule A
Yeah.
and Schedule B Hoover Dam customer.
Yeah, explain what the contract is.
Minutes, will this be put out to the public at all for comments also, or it's strictly within OPD?
There's really no comments that are going to be received on this, because the state has done this, and they've done the negotiation with the parties that are involved.
So I got a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.